Imagine a society whereby everything in it is nothing but a system created by man, from religion to the aspect of living, every aspect of living that is. Imagine such kind of a society where all things are created by man in order to control other men. This is what we're going to talk about in this episode of Realities. This is Shepherds TV, and I am always your amigos. Please subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. Don't cease to watch our videos and don't fail to hit the notification button. My name is Aniko, and welcome, mi amigos. So, in this episode, I would like to speak about one of the systems of our current age. Why am I calling it a system? Is because everything around us is a system created by man, either to control other men or to make other men believe in certain things that won't help them, or maybe believe in certain things that are not good for them, or maybe created to control others. And one of the main things that I would like to speak about this particular time is education. Education is a system, a scam, especially the formal kind of education. In Africa especially, why am I saying this? Because in Africa, a long time before the formal education, there used to be different levels of education, where our sons and daughters were circumcised, and after circumcision, they were taught on how to live with others, how to abide to their cultural laws, how to be able to relate with the opposite sex, how to be disciplined with the elderly. And even in the present age, we can notice such kind of discipline emphasized in certain communities, such as the Maasai, and other communities in the world, such as the San and the Khoikhoi of South Africa and the Sahara Desert. We realize that this kind of cultures and informal educations are very much powerful. Now, before I continue further, what is education? They say education is a passing of skills, knowledge to a generation or to people from one person to another. Okay, and talking about skills, when we go to school nowadays, what are we going to do? What are our children being taught? How are they being taught? Are their education really helping them, especially in our society of Africa? And if you compare our education in the society of Africa, we'll have to ask ourselves, why is it that our education is different from the education of others in the Western countries and Asian countries where people are developing highly? Why is it that their people can do greater things than our people? Is it because they're high in IQ and we are low in IQ? Or is it because their education has been made in a different manner as compared to ours? Education for a very long time has been created by man for a certain purpose. One of the pioneers of current education system is known as John D. Rockefeller, and his words, he had said that he wants to create a society of workers, not a society of thinkers. You understand? So what does that mean? When the colonizers came to Africa, they realized that they need manpower in different levels. They needed manpower in teaching in schools. They needed teachers, in short. They needed doctors. They needed people to work in their railways. They needed people who were skilled in law. They needed people who could work, in short, to better the society in which they were colonizing. And so what they did is they brought up the current education system, of which we have up to today. So the current education system in our nation, especially here in Kenya, is 844, which now is trying to be moved to another curriculum called CBC. You understand? And this kind is just the same thing being manipulated in a different way. They say they'll base it in talents and other capabilities of the children, but it's all the same thing. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that education is just a kind of a system, or maybe a scam. It has been created by man for a certain reason, and this reason mainly is to be able either to control other men or to ensure that, number one, a society is poor as expected. I've come to realize that some of the things we are learning today was learned in the Western nation many years that have passed, especially if we check even into the periodic table of elements. Check into it and go and check the periodic table being used abroad in the Western nation. You realize that there is a huge difference, and there are many other elements in the periodic table being used by the Western learners that are as compared to the one used by ours. So this is education system. Now imagine a society whereby most of the people are educated in the manner of formal education, yet joblessness is high. There is no employment. People are not capable of being able to provide for their families. Imagine a society whereby people are highly learned and parents have been able to sacrifice a lot for their sons and daughters so that they may be able to go to school, because this is the thing that happens in the societies in Africa. Our parents have been brainwashed that the formal education is the key, and sometimes we are told in songs and many other things that education is the key to success. But what will our children go through? After our parents have been able to sell their lands, sell their cattle, thinking that they will be able to bring up a man who is able to support their family and be able to restore the things that they sold because of these children, their children end up being jobless and a nuisance to the society. Some of them end up to be learned criminals. Some of them end up to be learned drug dealers and drug addicts. And so we wonder why. Imagine such kind of a society. So, is education, especially the modern formal education, helpful to us? Most of the rich men of the world, and even the current richest man in the world, Elon Musk, say that education is a scam. You understand? So, how is education a scam? If we talk about Bill Gates, he's a dropout, a college dropout. Talk about Elon Musk, he's a dropout. Most of the richest men in the world are not rich because of the formal education that they got, but they are rich because of the things that they learned outside of the formal education. The schools today are just teaching our children how to compete with one another. I am number last, he's number one, I am number two, I'm number three. I got this grade, he got this grade. We are competing. It's a place where our children are taken to be able to cram so that they may be able to pass exams. It's a place where your ability to memorize what you've been taught is the power of making you known as the best students. Your intellectuality is measured by what you can be able to cram and master in your mindset. And so most of the people who are talented in other skills, especially physical skills, or let me call them, how will I call this, technical skills. Most of the young people who are talented in technical skills cannot be able to show it in writing because most of the technical skills are practical. I've seen some of the people who have gone to schools to learn engineering, especially in the area of construction, but most of them cannot be able to do it in the practical form. Why? Because what they have is theory. They have only been taught on how to read, memorize, and put it in exams. Like transferring something from one paper into your brain, then translating it from your brain into another paper. That's what is happening in our schools. Competition and memorizing. Even when we were growing up, we were taught many things by our parents. And one of the things that we learned from the people around us was simple things like washing plates, washing dishes, sweeping the floor. Try to remember, if at all at any particular point, your mother or your aunt or your guardian ever gave you an exam on how to wash the dishes, or have he or she ever gave you exams on how to sweep the floor? Not really. But you know how to do it perfectly. And these are things that you did not memorize. You learn them by doing them. You understand? We've got aviation colleges whereby what they're learning there are just memorizing things. Aviation college without aeroplanes where children can go and do practical stuff, practical stuff concerning the aeroplanes. So the question is, what is education today? Are our children benefiting from the current education? Will the society ever change if we continue with the current education? Now, if we go to the post-colonial era, especially the immediate post-colonial eras, the people who were learned at that time were able to get jobs and acquire jobs. But not currently. Why not currently? Because currently there are other things that are coming into play that we must learn, and we want to be taught these things in schools. Also, at current time, we have reached to a point whereby most of the collar jobs that our parents or our grandparents actually will be able to learn and acquire jobs with. This kind of education is no longer in a way that all of us can get employment through them. Why am I saying so? As I said, the colonizers, when they came, they realized that they need manpower, and they cannot import all the lawyers, all the engineers, all the judges from abroad. So they had to help our own to be able to work in those specific positions. So most of the people who went even to the level of high school education were able to acquire jobs in the railway construction. They were able to acquire a job in the railway construction. If you could speak fluent English, you are able to go into employment in metal factories, even in sugar companies, in tea companies, and so in tea factories. And so they were able to acquire jobs. In posta, they were able to work in posta. They were able to acquire jobs. But as time went by, many people went with that mentality that we must learn this way. I must be a doctor, I must be a lawyer, I must be an engineer, I must be a teacher. So we came to a place whereby most of the people who are learned, they are of the same caliber. When you go to seek for a job, you are so many people. One person is needed for that particular occupation, but you are like thousands of you waiting in line to be interviewed so that you may be able to acquire such a job. And what I'm trying to say is that, not that we cannot get those jobs. I'm saying that education currently, especially the formal education, is not to be depended upon 100%. That's why I call the current education is a scam. Most of our young people in this African society are learned, and I say highly educated. But they are highly educated, yet they are jobless. In my nation, Kenya, we have so many doctors who have no jobs, so many engineers who are jobless, lawyers who are jobless. Why? Because after thinking that going to school and learning on how to become a lawyer will give you a job, they were disappointed to find there are so many lawyers outside there, even learned more than them, that are even more jobless than them. I've seen them work in construction sites. I've seen them work doing some manual labor only so that they may be able to make a living out of it. If you check them, they've got papers, they're speaking good languages, you understand? So education currently should be changed, and most of it should be focused in talent. I believe that the current education we are dealing with is just a system that is meant to bring down a society, or to be able to control a society, to make people more poor than they are. Why and how? If I spend 8 years in primary education, then I go to the high school education, I spend 4 more years. Then I go to higher education, the university, then I spend 4 more years. Whereby those 4 more years is not for every single aspect of a career. There are doctors who spend more years in the universities. We have biochemists who spend more years in the university than 4 years. And these are so many years, 8 plus 4, that is 12, plus another 4, that is 16 years being spent in education. Then when you come out of education again, you'll have to go to be tested in attachments to see if at all you are qualified for the work. After that, now you'll start tamarking now for the real job. You spend also some 2 years or maybe 3 years or maybe forever tamarking, looking for jobs. I'm not saying that we should not be educated, but we should be educated in the right manner. The governments of Africa currently should be able to think outside the box of their education system, the education system that was brought by the white people. Consider the Chinese, for example. They are dealing with great intellectuality, trying to teach their children on how to make machines, to teach their children on how to make phones, to teach their children how to make phones and watches and televisions, and they are doing this with passion, considering the talents of the young people. From a young age you are being taught this, and when you grow up you can do great things. Labor is cheap because most people can do this kind of a stuff. You understand? Go to the United States, for example. You find a very young person is skilled in his or her talent. A sports person has been practicing the skill for so many years since they were young. And when they grow up, they are so much talented that you'll wonder how did they acquire such kind of skills. There are nations whereby their footballers are taught from a very young age on how to become a professional footballer. There are some other nations where athletes are being trained from a very young age on how to become a professional athlete. So people are trained according to their skills. Actors are being trained in many nations in the world currently on how to be able to be perfect actors even when they grow up. But when we are wasting the time of our young people, that my son or daughter must go through the whole education system, go through primary school, go through secondary school, go through university, and then tarmac for years for him or her to be able to acquire a job, we will waste so many years of our children, and at long last, we won't be able to develop our nation. We won't be able to develop ourselves. We won't be able to develop our families. Education is a system, but we can make this system work for us by thinking outside of the box. We have tried for centuries trying to change the education system that was brought by the white person, trying to make it more pleasing, and the more we try to make it more pleasing, the more we are spoiling things, the more we are adding more salt into the salty soup. Nobody will be able to eat it. You see. So what I'm trying to say is that education is a good thing. Every person should learn, but education should not be a system whereby we are just creating mediocres instead of people who are mature enough in terms of intellect to be able to maneuver in our society. So what should a young man do? If at all you get to a point whereby now you are educated, you've gone through the formal education, but you see that you have masters in doctorate, but you realize there are so many doctors outside there with masters, but they are jobless. What will you do as a young man when you come to a place that you realize that you're so much talented, yet you've gone to school to study to be a lawyer, but what you study is not making any living for you? What will you do? There's a place that you'll come to, and you realize that in the current life, skills are paying people more than jobs or white collar jobs. Yeah, we've got entertainers that are richer than doctors, comedians that are wealthier than doctors, than lawyers. We've got carpenters that are wealthier than doctors. Skills. Number one element that we should put into focus is, what is my skill? What is my talent? I will talk a little bit about painters. There are many painters, artists, who are selling billions of dollars. Their paints are worth billions of dollars. Only a paint. That is talent and art. If you can ask yourself, what is my talent? Am I an athlete? Am I a footballer? Am I a musician? What is my talent? Then focus on that talent. And I'll say this is not just for the young people or just for, it's for even the parents. Look at your son or daughter when they are growing up and try to realize and take note of their talent when they are still young. What is the talent of my daughter? What is the talent of my son? What is the talent of this young man of whom I'm bringing up? When you realize that their talent, try to nurture them in accordance to their talent. Try to develop their talents. By the time they grow up, they will be thankful that we've reached this place because of my father or because of my mother, who realized that I am talented in this way. And they will be able to achieve more that they have been able to achieve, that they will be able to achieve when you take them through the formal education. Now, I'm not saying that formal education is bad. I am saying that everything has got its own time. There was a time when formal education was beneficial. But at current age, we should focus on different things.